Hi, friends. I sure hope you're having a good day. Let us know how to pray for you before you go any further. If there's a prayer need, you just pause and you post it right there on the prayer page. If you can stay around for about 7 minutes, we're going to look at one of the great stories in the Bible, a story that reminds us of how God takes ordinary people and does extraordinary things with them. Speaking of important people in the Bible, I got a new book coming out this month. It's called You Were Made for This Moment. It's based on the story of Esther. Be sure we're going to take some time to consider well the story of Esther, really a story for our times. I want us to look at some other Bible characters over the next, half a dozen sessions. Stories of scandal and stumble and intrigue. Stories of people whose experiences remind us of our own. None of us are perfect, but we're in the hands of a perfect God. You know, heroes are sometimes hard to identify because they don't look like heroes. Today, let's peer into a Roman prison and see for ourselves. Can you see the man, bent and frail, shackled to the arm of a Roman guard? It's Paul, the apostle of God. Who knows when his back last felt a bed or his mouth last knew a good meal. 3 decades of travel and trouble, and what's he got to show for it? Well, there's squabbling in Philippi, competition in Corinth. The legalists are starting to swarm in Galatia. Crete is plagued by money grabbers. Ephesus is stalked by womanizers. Even some of Paul's own friends have turned against him. Dead broke, no family, no property, nearsighted, worn out. Now, he's had his moments. He spoke to an emperor once, but he couldn't convert him. Spent a few days in Jerusalem with Peter and the boys, but they couldn't seem to get along. So Paul hit the road and he never got off. Thessalonica, Athens, Syracuse, Malta. The only list longer than his itinerary was the list of his misfortunes. He got stoned in one city, got stranded in another, nearly drowned as many times as he nearly starved. If he spent more than 1 week in the same location, it was probably a prison. He never received a salary. He had to pay his own travel expenses. He kept a part-time job on the side to make ends meet. Doesn't look like a hero, does he? You know, he doesn't sound like one either. You know, he introduced himself as the worst sinner in history. He was a Christian killer before he was a Christian leader. At times his heart was so heavy that Paul's pen drug itself across the page. What a miserable man I am, he once wrote. Who will save me from this body that brings death? Romans 7 in verse 24. Only heaven knows how long he stared at the question before he found the courage to defy logic and write, I thank God for saving me through Jesus Christ our Lord. 1 minute, he's in charge. The next minute, he's in doubt. One day, he's preaching. The next, he's in prison. And that's where I'd like you to look at him. Imagine him. Can you see him there in the prison? And just for a minute, pretend you don't know who he is. Let's say you're a guard or a cook or a friend of the hatchet man. And you've come to get one last look at the guy while they sharpen the blade. What you see shuffling around in his cell isn't too impressive, isn't too much. But what I lean over and tell you is this: that man will shape the course of history. You chuckle at the thought, but I continue. Nero's fame will fade in this man's light. You turn and stare at him, and I continue. His churches will die, but his thoughts, within a couple of 100 years, his thoughts will influence the teachings of every school on this continent. You shake your head in disbelief, absolute disbelief. But I continue. See those letters I say? Those letters are scribbled on parchment now, but they're going to be read in thousands of languages, and they will impact every major creed and constitution of the future. Every major figure will read them, every single one. And that would be your breaking point. You would say to me, no way. He's an old man with an odd faith. He'll be killed. He'll be forgotten before his head hits the floor. Who could differ? Who could disagree? I mean, honestly, what rational thinker would counter? Paul's name would blow like the dust his bones would soon become. No level-headed observer would think otherwise. I mean, his peers simply had no way of knowing what his legacy would be. And neither do we. For that reason, I'd like to suggest to you, you may have heroes all around you and you not know it. The fellow who changes the oil in your car, he could be a hero in coveralls, maybe. Maybe as he works, he prays, asking God to do with the heart of the driver what he does with the engine. The daycare worker, where you drop off the kids. Maybe she's a hero. Maybe her morning prayers include the name of each child as they enter, and the dream that each one will change the world. Who's to say that God isn't listening? What about the parole officer downtown? He could be a hero. Or she could be the one who challenges the ex-cons, to challenge the teens, to challenge the gangs. I know. These folks don't fit our image of a hero. They look too ordinary, normal. We need 4 stars. We need titles. We need headlines, folks. But something tells me that for every hero who's in the spotlight, there are dozens in the shadows. They don't get the press. They don't draw the crowds. They don't command the attention. They don't write books. But behind every avalanche is a snowflake. Behind every rock slide is a pebble. An atomic explosion begins with one atom, and a revival, a world-changing revival, can begin with one sermon. We seldom see history in the making, and we seldom recognize heroes. Which is just as well. For if we knew either, we might mess up both. But we'd do well to keep our eyes open. Tomorrow's Paul might be mowing your lawn, and the hero who inspires him might be nearer than you think. He or she might be looking back at you in the mirror.